Folks, welcome to the middle of your week. It is time for some more hobby nightmares. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below. And if you really like what I do, then the little bell notification icon is down there too. If you don't click that, you'll never hear from me ever again. And also, if you like what I do and you want to get some more models, Composite Games is the place to go. If you want to support the channel, all the info is down below. Let's get involved in some hobby nightmares, shall we? Because there's a few to go over today. Oh, a few of these. Listen, at the moment we are in, well, at least in my workplace, we are in exam season, especially online in the US as well. So I've been very, very, very busy. Some of these I have not been able to curate. So if I start reading your story and I stop reading it because it's not that good, please recognise that I will be getting back to you over an email to give you some feedback and advice and things like that on what I think you should do in your reading, right? Okay. So most of them should be okay, though. A few of them have been curated for me, which is nice. So thank you very much. Let's jump in, shall we? Vink says, Hello, North. I want to talk to you about one of my most frustrating hobby moments that happened to me just a few days ago. This story takes place in the depths of the Nerd Cave, Reddit. The Warhammer 40k subreddit, to be exact. Okay. I don't know the reputation of the 40k subreddit. I know a lot of subreddits have a very bad reputation for being overly policed and, shall we say, not very conducive to open thought. You know, on disagreements and things like that. But anyway. Now, to be honest, most of the people over there are great guys. Over my time in the hobby, they have helped me greatly with coming up with lore for my homebrew chapter, because everybody these days has one of those, indeed. Well, that's the best part of the hobby, man. Best part of the hobby is creating armies yourself. And you creating your own Space Marine chapter is a piece of 40k that Games Workshop really have dropped the ball on. It is something that everybody seems to want to do at some stage in their hobby career. Like everybody seems to want to do at least a kill team from a Space Marine chapter that is their own. That is something that Games Workshop has failed to capitalise on so hard that it's actually painful. Every single Space Marine Codex Space Marine should have most of that codex should be guaranteed and dedicated towards you creating your own Space Marine chapter. Codex Space Marine should be just that, creating your own Space Marine chapter and maybe some Ultramarines in there as well. Just, you know, just my opinion. Anyway, they're encouraging me to paint my own paint jobs and so much more. This story will not deal with any of that, of course. Instead, we're going to talk about a highly debated subject, recasts. First of all, I do not think that anybody in my following story is at fault. People have their own opinions, and that's great. However, I really can't see anything that would justify the following reactions to my problem. Sorry for rambling on, I just think I needed to start out with this disclaimer. Okay, for those of you who don't know what recasts are, they are illegal recasts of Games Workshop models that are usually made by people in China and shipped over to you for a fraction of the price of Games Workshop products. Why are they illegal? Because they infringe on the intellectual property of Games Workshop in ways that are basically trying to ape them off. You know what I mean? They're trying to actually say, these are Space Marines, whereas most of the things that you 3D print yourself are either you know, spacemen, quote unquote, and things like that. You know, they're legally distinct from Space Marines. Recasts are no such thing. They are literally the Games Workshop mold taken and made into, you know, remade legally elsewhere. Anyway, to set the stage, I started my work on a 500-point Firstborn Space Marines list. I sent you a work in progress picture of my captain. He's coming along quite nicely. Yeah, it looks pretty good, man. It looks pretty good. I don't really like the style of the... Hang on, I'm going to get your email up here just to double check. Vic. Okay. Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, looks pretty good. I like it. Might look at that. I like the colour, man. I've always, found darker colours so much harder to do. I don't know whether any of you have had that problem. But I really like the yellow. The yellow looks really, really cool. Alright, moving on. Where was I? Oh, yeah. I don't really like the style of the new Primaris, and I feel that they just don't really catch the grimdark setting as well as the Firstborn. With their screaming helmets, thrown together servo armour, and oversized bolt guns. Now, as I wanted my list to be some classic Marines, I of course needed the pinnacle of what the Adeptus Astartes can field. An unstoppable killing machine, awoken only for slaughter and bloodshed, armoured in thick ceramite plate that can resist even the most terrible damage, and armed with the mightiest of guns that only the Colossus Imperial war machines can field. I wanted a Dreadnought. The sad thing is, most of the current models Games Workshop makes suffer from the Firstborn curse. Out of proportion, too small, and funny looking. Yeah, that is something that I am noticing as well. If you want to do Dreadnoughts, man, like, you are stuffed if you go back to the old kits of Dreadnoughts, man. They look so silly. Whereas the new ones look pretty badass. However, there is one official model that I just instantly fell in love with. The Mark IV Dreadnought. I might link some pictures so that you'll know firsthand how awesome looking he is. Yeah, he is pretty cool. Basically, it's all I wanted from a Dreadnought. Large and in charge looking, with some gothic elements that most Primaris models can only dream of having someday. Like you could imagine, I wasn't the most happy when I found out that this model is out of production. Since I couldn't find the miniature anywhere from second-hand stores, I knew I needed to turn to the recast market. And what do you know? I instantly found my baby on various websites with domains I have never used before or heard of before. So, what does a man do when in doubt? He goes to Reddit to ask people that know as little as he does. I quickly created a post stating that I was looking for an out-of-production product and if anybody had any experience with buying from such websites, as most of them seem a bit fishy, even for my taste. Eager for answers, I stalked the comments to see if anyone could help me out, only to notice that the comments were suddenly blocked and reading a sassy message from a mod, telling me that I wouldn't find any recasts here and to mind my own business. Now, I have looked up the rules of the subreddit and couldn't find any rules that stated that talking about recasts was a no-no. Now, I would understand why one would do this if I was looking for any newly released recast miniatures and just wouldn't want to pay half of my soul to Games Workshop, but this is something different. Forge World would not lose any profit from me buying this out of a production model. I, as a customer, am not at fault if the company decides to not match my needs. So, should I just decide to not buy a model that stopped being cast about 10 years ago from another source just because I am loyal to Games Workshop? I don't think so. All in all, I just think it's very frustrating for me as an individual. I understand that third-party companies don't own the copyright of Games Workshop models, but if they actively decide to ditch all cool models they own, then why should they complain if another source fills the gap? Isn't this just what an open market should do? Anyways, I'm excited to hear what your take is on recasts, and you think me being a bit annoyed is justified. Cheers, Vink. So, you're in the right and you're in the wrong, man. Here's the point. If you want to go and get recasts of models that Games Workshop are no longer providing for you, that is not a problem. You know, with me, that is not an issue at all. That is completely fine. You're complete within your rights to do that, and they don't really have a leg to stand on, to be honest with you, Games Workshop, in terms of complaining, because they're not providing a service, as you said. So yeah, fill your boots. The 40k subreddit, though, is somewhere where Games Workshop staff regularly trawl around. That's why I'm not on there very often. One of the main reasons why I'm not on there that often. I've heard it's a nice place to be, fair enough, but like I don't like having my comments and things read by, you know, people who are working for the company who tell me that they're not working for the company, because I know quite a few people who trawl on there to make sure that one, they gauge the temperature of the 40k fan base and what's going on. Not that they do anything about what they find out, but, you know, they gauge the fan base and what's going on. And two, they shut down any talk of things like recasts and stuff like that on such a big platform as the 40k subreddit, right? It's not an official subreddit, but it is a subreddit. You know, it's a big-ass subreddit that carries a lot of weight and a lot of power. The same thing goes for if you had a really massive YouTuber on 40k, like Weshammer or Major Kill or something like that. If they had a big wiki and they were talking about recasts all the time, you bet your ass they would get a cease and desist from Games Workshop pretty quickly. Why? Because they don't want this kind of thing being out there and shown around. Which is their right. They have got a complete right because they are in the legal right. They are legally allowed to say to you, listen, that is my IP. You're not allowed to use that without my permission. Please don't do that. They're absolutely within their right on the 40k subreddit to tell you not to do that because they don't want to be in hot water with Games Workshop. They literally don't. They do not want to be in hot water with Games Workshop. That is simply how it is. So even if the rules state that they don't disavow recasts, are you talking about recasts? It may be an unwritten rule there, that you've just stumbled across. So, in my opinion, man, you're completely in the right for going and getting a recast. No problem with that. But I still think you need to be a bit patient with people like the 40k subreddit because they don't want to be in hot water with Games Workshop. They just don't. It is what it is. And move on. I would be very careful about who you give your money to in terms of recasts. Head out online, Google is your friend, and also I think there are people on my Discord who also collect recasts, or at least buy a few recasts. So head on there and ask around, see what people say. Vex says, "Hi North, Valerin, Vex. You can use my name if you read this. No problem. Thank you very much for putting it in the first line." I once had somebody I knew and was in a relationship on and off with for 3 years. And there was someone that not only did she get me back into painting, which I have been doing for 20 years, but that she also got me back into the hobby. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. It's always great when you're in a relationship that really, nurtures one of your hobbies. I love that. It's great. Awesome. We became friends, quote unquote. When we became friends, quote unquote, she would talk about every other person. What? When we became friends, quote unquote, every person she previously dated would be told to me in exhaustive detail. Why? And when I would buy games to play with her, she would not really be interested. And then also claim that I just don't play games with her. Okay, this sounds a bit manipulative. Thus, the hobby nightmare is this. The biggest impact she had on my mental health was that I always had to be around her because she was always depressed. But also, at the same time, she was gaslighting me into taking antipsychotic medication. Jesus, dude. Long story short, she's out of my life, and the damage to my painting skills and my want to be in the hobby is healing. If someone asks your sign and your personality type whilst living their life by tarot cards that aren't Imperial issued, and that they have psychic powers, and can see how you see the world, run away. Dude, yeah, this reads to me like you are a hobbyist who previously didn't have a girlfriend for quite a while, and then got with somebody who literally destroyed your life, and this reads like a really venting email. It is a hobby nightmare, but it is very to the point. You are right, though. One of my red flags, and this may seem really unfair, and I know a lot of you are going to be like, what? Yeah, I know. But one of my red flags is tarot cards and things like that. It's one of my big red flags when people say, what's your star sign? And I immediately think, okay, you're a bit kooky wooky, that's fine. I'm going to take a step back here. No, trust me, I've known a lot of people, I've known long-term ex-girlfriends who've been into tarot cards and stuff, it's fine. If you're into metal music and Warhammer, you're going to come across women who are into tarot cards. It just is what it is. Comes with the territory, man. Comes with the territory. They'll be into tarot cards, a few of them will be into whips and S&M and all sorts. It comes with the territory. What I would say is, if a woman's really into, I tried online dating once when I first got back from America. And I was speaking to this very charming young lady, and she would get on the phone to me, and she would start giving me these fun questionnaires about my star sign, which is Aquarius, by the way, if anyone's interested. And she would be like, "Ooh, I'm not sure about that. Oh, that sounds cool. That sounds good." When I would give her answers about my star sign and what I would do in a certain questionnaire, it was like this astrology questionnaire, not astrology. You know what I meant. You know what I mean. It's like a questionnaire that she went through to discern who you'd be good with. And she was literally basing whether we'd be successful in a relationship off this fucking questionnaire. And she was into the hobby. She was into everything that I was into. It sounded great, but that just turned me off. no, like, I'm sorry. And she went, oh, this sounds great. Like, it says here that we're going to be quite well compatible. Great. Well, dude, if we're going to have kids, how do we choose the school they're going to go into? Are we going to go to one of your little horoscope things and look at the... No, don't be ridiculous. Do not be ridiculous. Anyway, I stopped talking to that person, and now she is in India somewhere, and she's disappeared. All of her friends don't know where she is. She went to India to find herself and is gone. Disappeared, gone. So that just goes to show, be very wary of people who generally look at horoscopes and treat them with any serious concoction of reality. Because, yeah, it's not real. And listen, if you believe in it, all power to you. All power to you. But it is a big red flag for me if somebody believes in it a bit too much and starts, like, living their life by what a horoscope says. Anyway, moving on. The Hobbyist. The Hobbyist, okay. Hey, Northern Exile. I'm one of your dedicated American viewers. Thank you very much. I doff my cap to you and all the rest of my American viewers. I stumbled upon your YouTube channel while searching for the exact subject of these videos, hobby nightmares. Before, I used to browse Reddits, or random negative hobby store reviews from across the country. Wow, you are chasing that negativity, my man. You're really chasing that negativity. Be very careful about chasing so much negative energy. I bet you're like disappointed by some of my my hobby nightmares that turn out to be quite nice. Anyway, now, however, I get my daily dose of Schadenfreude from your videos. Thanks for entertaining me. No problem, man. However, I do believe it's good to share fun, positive, and optimistic stories, which is why the title of my story is Hobby Dream Come True. Okay, now for my story. I have always had a massive love for Warhammer. I was introduced to the brand by my brother-in-law, who is a hardcore nerd, but still a very cool guy. He and I used to play Dawn of War 2 together all of the time. Awesome, man. If you like Dawn of War 2, head back and play Dawn of War 1 and let me know what you think. Because apparently it's the best one. I love Dawn of War 1. Let's have a little look. I was a young kid when I played that video game with him, and always thought it was so cool to have a Space Marine game to play beside StarCraft. Eventually, I realised Warhammer had real-life toy soldiers. I'm sure everyone who plays Warhammer loves their toy soldiers, but I'm built from a different breed. I literally, and still have, a collection of toy soldiers and army men ranging from cheapo pound store moulds to super high quality, highly detailed soldiers. This collection numbers in the tens of thousands. Many of these soldiers I enjoy painting. Dude, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. You see the amount of people who have like Funko Pops and stuff like that? Similar thing. Those factors all drew me into the hobby, painting, collecting aspect of Warhammer. However, I was never able to add Warhammer soldiers into my army, until now. About 2 months ago, I decided to just go all in with collecting Warhammer figurines, and bought myself the Cadia Stands box set. I used some of my old toy soldiers as practice proxies for my Cadian shock troops. I'd rather practice painting on the cheap soldiers before I paint the real Warhammer miniatures. Pictures of my proxy marines are attached for your enjoyment. Yeah, a few of them look really good, man. A few of them did look really good. Now, last week, I discovered a local hobby store, which was selling tactical Space Marines and Primaris Intercessors for ridiculously low prices. $25 and $30 respectively. I bought them both immediately. I also hunted for extra Cadian shock troops on eBay and successfully bought 2 more boxes of the classic shock troops. Between you and me, I like the look of the old Cadians more than the new ones, but I'm glad I have both versions. Do you know what? I've heard multiple people say multiple things about the new Cadians, and that they're a bit too big. I kind of agree with that. They're a bit too big. Just when they get the scale of the Space Marines right, they start bringing in massive Cadians, which is just, you know, why not have a little bit taller Cadians with like better proportions than just making near Space Marine sized Cadians? I have no idea why Games Workshop does this. You know, beggars belief. But anyway. Now here is where the title of the story comes into play. My hobby dream comes true. My mother works in a large business building, where various companies cohabit the floors, and they each have their own individual offices. My mother is the property manager, and ensures all the tenants are properly accommodated. People and companies come and go, and my mother also orders the the customers to clean up whatever the business has left over. Okay. Last week, another business left their office, and, like usual, left a lot of crap behind. Some of the junk left was a few file cabinets. My wife had been needing a new file cabinet, so my mother had one of the janitors leave it aside for her to bring home. My mother inspected the file cabinet, and it was filled with junk. The bottom drawer even had a full 6-pack of beer still inside there, and a box next to it. My mother loves antique and vintage items, so she immediately fell in love with this shiny, metallic, almost occult-looking box. But when she opened the box, she knew its contents were destined to be held by my hands. What was left was 25 half-painted, half-primed Cadian shock troops. When she brought the box to me and I opened it for the first time, my heart stopped and I was just stunned. What in the love of all exists could be the chances of that happening? That my mother, of a toy soldier / Warhammer aficionado, discovers a box full of with a full platoon of soldiers in there. My mother, although she does not like toy soldiers, I mean, no shit, she's your mother, at least humoured me in my interest in them, and asked how much they were worth, and all that. I told her a set of 10 would go for about $40 on eBay, and since we're missing 5, the total value is about $110. My mother then joked and said I should go find the person who left these soldiers behind and get them to give up another 5. We shared a laugh. I then recounted the story to my wife, who was also dumbfounded but happy. She, like my mother, aren't head over the heels for crazy toy soldiers, and Warhammer like myself, but my wife at least plays the game with me and paints with me. That is a keeper, man. That is a keeper. Good girl. That being said, she seems glad to have more soldiers to paint together. This will be truly a treasured memory of my time enjoying this hobby. Has anything else like this happened ever to you? Either way, thanks for reading. Sincerely, the hobbyist. No, not really. Not really. I mean, at GW, like, when I left, the only models I took with me were the ones that I bought and painted myself. You know, like, so I couldn't really do much else, to be honest with you. But in terms of, like, your kind of a thing, no. But I've known people on eBay to find crazy deals. I mean, I know a friend of mine, Lawrence, once bought like 500 points of Dark Angels on eBay when we were in university, and 2,000 points of Dark Angels turned up in the mail, simply with a note saying, "Yeah, I can't find a buyer for these, so here you are." So, like, that was a good day for him, a very good day for him. So these things can happen in the hobby. I mean, people in the hobby generally, they want to help other people. We don't really have a really bitter fan base of people who want to get one over on everyone else. And if somebody does try to do that, generally they're crowded out pretty quickly. If somebody tries to nickel and dime you, generally they're crowded out. This is why people who do scalping are so, reviled in the hobby. This is why people who practice that, people say, don't buy Games Workshop products, like, straight away. Like do not buy them as, shall we say, pre-ordered, because all that's going to do is drive up the scalping market, because scalpers will then get others that other people can't get and sell them for 4, 5, 6 times the price on eBay, because they know certain whales will pay it, because they're too lazy to go and actually get a pre-order, right? So don't entertain the pre-order market. That's one of the reasons why we say that. But I'm very, 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 very glad that you got a really good value of models for free. That is absolutely awesome. Anyway, thank you guys for listening to Hobby Nightmares. I will be back on, tomorrow with some Tyrannid lore, and then I will be back again on Friday for some more Hobby Nightmares, some of which are of the more cringe variety. Today I wanted to do some of the weird ones about recasts and getting models that perhaps you didn't get access to normally. That was what today's theme was. Hopefully you've had a good time. Love you all a long time. I will speak to you a little bit later on. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you then. Have a good one. Bye.